Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video for you. Recently, I made a video about all of the removed legendaries in the game. Well, I thought it might make for an interesting video to take a look at some of the rare items in general, not just legendaries, and sort of go over the details and history behind them. So in this video, I'll show you 10 of them. Note that this will include stuff that's no longer obtainable or wasn't intended to be obtainable. Just throwing that out there since some people have a problem with that. Regardless though, saying they're rare is technically correct, which is the best kind of correct. And another thing I'll say is that this list isn't in a super strict order. Due to the nature and rarity of these items, it's kind of hard to get any concrete information about them. I'll try to order them from least to most rare as best I can though. So, first up we have the Big Love Rocket. Don't worry, this video is rated E for everyone, but this mount is tied to the Valentine's Day event known as Love is in the Air. It drops from a cache that you get from a dungeon that's tied to the event. It's an altered Shadowfang keep pretty much. You only get one shot a day, it has a 0.03% drop chance, and the event only lasts for 2 weeks out of the year, so it's extraordinarily rare. If you run it every day on one character, you would have a 0.4% chance to get it. To have a 10% chance to get it, you would have to run the event every day on 24 max level characters. To put that into perspective, you're 30% more likely to have a fatal slip in the shower. Next up, we have the Papal Fez. This is one of the many rare items from the All-Demand dungeon, which is a level 40-ish instance. In this place, you can find a whole slew of unique bind and equip items that have an insanely low drop rate. They were primarily used for twinking, but the scene has died down quite a bit due to heirlooms and the separate battlegrounds, so now they're mainly there for transmogging. This is the only red colored Fez in the game, and as of this video, it fetches a price of around 1.5 million gold. Now, before you try to farm it, keep in mind that only 12 or so mobs in the whole instance can drop it, and the chance is around a 0.05% rate, so unless you're very lucky, you're talking thousands of runs on average. For number 3, we have the Chromatic Sword. This is an old level 40 two-handed sword from vanilla that gives you some resistances. So back then, it wasn't very good stat-wise, but now it's a highly sought-after transmog piece because it has a multicolor glow to it. It dropped off of the rare mob Scalebelly in Strigglethorn Vale, and ever since Cataclysm, it was taken off of the loot table. So since then, the supply has been cut off, and the only ones in circulation right now are from people who forgot it in their bank. It's currently going for an upwards of 6 million as of this video due to that rarity. Now, whether it's actually selling for this amount or not is hard to say. For number 4 on our list, we have a cooking recipe called Dirge's Kickin' Chimeric Chops. This taught you how to make some food that increased your stamina, and it was a reward from the old Scepter of the Shifting Sands questline in Silithus, which was tied to the opening of the gates of Ankiraj. The questline, and thus the rewards, were removed after the event completed, so the time window to get this was very short. It's not soulbound however, so you can still pick it up from the auction house if you can find it, and if you have the gold for it. And while we're on the subject, something else you got from the same questline was the Black Kiraji Resonating Crystal. I talked about this in my legendary video, but this is a legendary mount also picked up from the quest chain, although the time window was even shorter. The way the questline worked was you rung a gong, and at the end of it, as a reward you got this mount, and anyone able to ring the gong within 10 hours could also get it. It was a very long and involved quest chain requiring you to kill multiple raid bosses, so it was a very difficult task only open to the better raiding guilds. It's the only legendary mount that was obtainable outside of Game Master shenanigans. I would have it higher on the list, but it did see a spike in quantity because for a while as the game was growing and new servers were being released, you could still do the AQ opening ceremony allowing you to get this mount. And once you've leveled past vanilla content, it's pretty trivial to get. As soon as a new server popped up, tons of people, including whole guilds, switched over solely for the sake of completing the chain, and this continued up until the Wrath of the Lich King expansion where it was changed to where the gates were already open on new servers. But still a very rare mount these days. Next, we have another cooking recipe, and that's the old Thistle tea recipe. This used to be a reward for a vanilla rogue quest chain. It was not soulbound and learnable by any class, but in March of 2005, patch 1.3 came out and changed the quest to award a bind on pickup version of this. Any existing recipe was unchanged, but ever since that patch, any new recipes weren't tradable. It's now highly sought after by collectors looking to learn every cooking recipe, and in the very rare cases it pops up on the auction house, it goes for millions and millions of gold. If you have a rogue that you leveled up within the first 4 months of the game's release, check your bank in case you have one stashed away. For number 7, we have another All-Demand item on our list, and that's the Pendulum of Doom. This one was more for twinking rather than transmog. Twinking, if you don't know, is when you intentionally stay in a PvP bracket at the max level, and then you power up your characters with the best gear for that level. The Pendulum of Doom was the penultimate twink item. It was level 35 and it was highly sought after due to its slow 3.9 speed, making it one of the slowest two-handers in the game, but giving you tons of burst damage in return. If you had this as a warrior, paladin, or shaman, you were a wrecking ball. But it suffers from the same All-Demand curse. You can still get it, but due to its slow drop rate, it takes thousands and thousands of runs on average. And at the time this video was made, there are 0 on every auction house across every US server, and 2 on European servers. The next one is kind of cheating, but it has an interesting story behind it, so I'll share it anyways. During the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, the Old War raid was released and the top guilds were ready to race to the finish. But suddenly from out of nowhere, a guild by the name of the Marvel family on the Vecnalash server started ripping through the raid like crazy, giving them world first kills back to back. Things were a little fishy though because this guild supposedly hadn't even finished the previous raid tier, Nexramis. Like I said, they came from out of nowhere. Well, here's what happened. One of the members of the guild had their account compromised and they had a game master restore everything for him. So he was getting his gold, characters, and gear restored, but somewhere along the line, the GM handling the situation made a mistake. He accidentally gave the player an artifact quality shirt called Martin Fury. This is a GM only item. It gave you 34 strength and mana, and more importantly, it killed all enemies within a 30-yard radius. The guild then used this shirt to clear all of Uldar in one day, including a couple of other raids, and it was a huge controversy at the time. Blizzard's reaction was to permanently ban the guild member who used the shirt. And kind of messed up, they banned everyone online in the guild during the kills for 24 hours, regardless if they were even in the raid or not. So, you can just imagine all of the people who had nothing to do with it scratching their heads at a ban screen the next day. The world firsts were revoked, there was a huge uproar about it, and the next day, Blizzard changed the way their GM items work so something like this never happened again. So like I said, kind of cheating putting this item on the list, but I thought it would be fun to share. And while I'm cheating anyways, next up we have the Fluorescent Green Mechanostrider. Another mount here, and another one given out by a GM by mistake. Only one existed in the entire game. A player was having some sort of issue with their normal Mechanostrider you buy from the gnome mount vendor. He couldn't summon it, or something weird was happening, so he paged a GM. They couldn't fix his current one, so the GM gave him a new one. To the player's surprise, he didn't receive one of the normal ones you could buy, but rather one only found in the game files. This is the Fluorescent Green Mechanostrider, never released by normal means. It no longer exists though, since the player who got it tried to sell his or her account and it was banned. And lastly, we have the Talisman of the Binding Shard. I also talked about this one in my legendary video, but this was the very first legendary looted in the game. It dropped off of Baron Geddon in the Molten Core raid. An undead warrior by the name of Noctin was the lucky recipient. It was a melee amulet having strength, agility, and stamina, and some fire and nature resistances, which was actually really important back then for certain fights. It also had an affix that dealt a whopping 4 damage to anyone who attacked you. It wasn't intended for it to be able to drop, and it was removed the same day it was looted, but Noctin did get to keep his, making him the only one in the whole game to have it. There's lots of speculation about why it was removed and what it was for. Some say that it was the original way to get Thunder Fury, and others say it was intended to be used to summon more bosses. Nothing official though, and now I guess we'll never know. So, that's about it. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. There are many more items such as Atish, the Corrupted Ashbringer, etc., but, you know, can't get to all of them in one video. And like the title says, these are just rare items, not rarest. If you guys want more though, I'll be sure to come back to this because it's interesting stuff I think. That's about all I have to say though. I hope you found the video entertaining, like it if you liked it, and thanks for watching. Peace.